see, what do I have here in the chat? Yeah, it's honestly just finding the opposite. So it is pretty easy in the sense that it's yeah, finding the opposite. I'm marking all over the paper. Okay, so let's do this, and then if we still have questions about adding and subtracting negative numbers, we'll do a little bit of practice before we move on to 6. How's that sound? Does that sound like a good idea? Okay. So let's see, and then who can watch the chat for me, Ren or Anna Lee? Both of you guys always really help me a lot with the chat. Would you guys mind either letting me know or helping answer questions in the chat? I know, Ren, you understand this really well. So if I miss something, if you could help me out. Yeah, okay, awesome. I'll give you an extra point for that too. So let's see. And I'm going to fill it out on my .cam. I know that you guys have the linear pod. You guys remember how to add text in there? I'm showing my screen, so to type, again, it is just where you see the letters, type in there. Type there, change the size of your text box, exit out of it. Right, and then move it around to fit on the lines. Okay, and then if you prefer to just write, there is a pin. And if you adjust this here, it will make the pin, the line thinner. And then here is the highlighter to highlight, and then you can add pictures. Here, you guys more or less can use that when I have you drop pictures of me as an Easter egg or what you're going to do over summer. For this class, my favorite drawing day was when we did the Easter egg one. All right, so I'm going to go to the .cam for my side. But then as the war went on, he changed his mind. He was like, hey, maybe we should enslave you. Okay. But why was he so fearful of changing? There we go. Share. It's because I have all my pins. All right. Oh, darn it. I left my highlighters at home, so I just have the one highlighter. I grabbed them last night. So my best friend teaches kindergarten, and she got a new classroom. And so she came over. I have a decorating problem. Like, I love decorating classrooms. So every time I long-term sub somewhere, I will redecorate that classroom to, I don't know, match what grade I'm in. And so I taught kindergarten for a couple of weeks in wintertime. And so I gave her all my decorations, and I had these whiteboards and different writing strips. So I took my highlighters out. One day I'll remember. Actually, when you guys come for the field trip, I have 10 million pens and pencils. So if I remember, actually I keep them pretty much in my car, except for the highlighters. Remind me if you want some pens, let me know. Okay. All right, so back onto math. Again, if you need to take the state test, you can log into it, but you will be required to do this classwork, but I'm recording it so that way you can look back at it. So you can have time to take the state test if you are really busy this week, because this is the last week for state testing. All right, so last week we did adding rational numbers. We did with different signs, right? And we did with the same sign. Here's one that's all filled out that we did. And we learned how to use the number line, which I know most of us have already had some practice with number lines, but we will use them moving on in math. Like whenever you use a thermometer, it's actually like moving across a number line. When you get into chemistry, you'll have elements that have melting points. And again, all of that is going to be tracked on a number line. So you'll, oddly enough, use number lines kind of for the rest of your educational career, depending what you get into in life. You'll still use it. You'll use it. I had quite a few engineers, actually, future engineers in here, and you will use a number line to portray your scale of your scale drawings. So I know it looks elementary, but it is important. All right. So what we're going to go over right now, it is called the additive inverse. And the idea or concept of additive inverse is extremely easy in this section of our math. But again, like I said, you'll use a lot of this stuff in the future, and your additive inverse, you'll need that for stoichiometry, chemistry. You're going to do that in 9th grade, 10th grade, and if you get into OChem, you'll do it then. And you'll need to know what the additive inverse is, not only for stoichiometry, but also for pH. And you'll need this information even just to clean your house. Actually, like if you have a pool, when you balance the chlorine in your pool, you're finding the additive inverse of chlorine molecules to oxygen molecules. And that's super fun, right? Is there no more spots? There are spots on the field trip. I had 2 people drop out. So Ren, if you want me to put your name in, I will. Okay. So finding the additive inverse. All right, so let's look at the word inverse. Okay. We know reverse, right, is to go backwards. Inverse, I don't know if you guys know the word like invert, when you mix something up, or introvert. It means inverse, to take what you have and put it inside. But in math, it's going to mean opposite sign. Sorry, guys, I do have terrible handwriting. It's opposite. So today we're going to learn how to find the additive inverse of a rational number. And the rational number, remember we have it here, rational numbers. I wanted to color this in so that way it could be like all the colors. Let's say whole numbers, right? Pink, blue. It encompasses whole numbers, integers. Integers are the positive and negative. It's like the same as the purple. Oh well, you guys get the point. I was trying to make it like pink and blue make purple. But that encompasses all rational numbers. And again, rational numbers, the definition means a number where a whole integer over another integer besides all integers besides 0. And if we see a whole number, that just means that it is the number over 1, right? Like here's our 18 over 1, meaning that's a whole number, 60 miles per hour, 60 miles 1 hour, okay? For example. And I know I keep going over that, but you'll use rational numbers so often. And when you get into Pythagorean theorem, rational numbers come up again, and you will then learn about irrational numbers. All right, so starting at our rule, every day we'll start a new rule. Does everyone have pins out? Or questions about rational numbers before we move on? going to take that as a no. All right, so finding the additive inverse, the rule is the opposite or additive inverse, opposite of a number is the same distance. Kind of a weird word, right, to use in math. Is the same distance. Can you guys read that? Or is it too far away? Okay, from zero on a number line. As the original number. So let's go over that part. The opposite or additive inverse of a number. So when we see the or right here, should actually have commas there. It's telling us right now, like this, the opposite means the same as additive inverse. So the opposite of a number is the same distance from zero on a number line as the original number, but on the other side. Of zero. And so last time we had talked about the number line rule, right? So if we have positive numbers, we move to the right. If we have negative numbers, we move to the left. So if we have a positive number, let's say we're at 2, right? That means I'm 1, 2 away from 0. My additive inverse is going to be 2 away from 0, but on the opposite side. So I move to the right, so now I need to move 2 to the left. 1, 2. So you'll always start at 0 to find your additive inverse. Okay? So the sum, and we learned about sum, definition of sum last time, right? The sum of a number and its additive inverse is, does anyone know or want to guess what the sum of a number and its additive inverse is equal to? We go 5 to the right for a positive number. So that gives us 5. If we start at 0 and go 5 the opposite direction, that would give us negative 5. So 5 plus negative 5, what does that equal? Yep, 0. 0. Is it easier to tell this is 0 if I put a line in it? Okay. And then with 0, 0 is magical in its own way. 0 is its own additive inverse. 0 is interesting on the number line. It's not positive nor is it negative, right? Because it doesn't have an actual value. It is the like representation of nothingness, kind of, right? Unless you're talking about temperature, then 0 is temperature. So not positive or negative, but that balance, that transition spot right in between. All right. So moving on. All right. So here we are at our number line. I'll do another example, right? I told you guys if I move, let's do 2, 3. All right, so if I have -2, right? That means I have -2. I moved 2 to the left. According to the rule for my additive inverse, the opposite or additive inverse of a number is the same distance from 0 on a number line as the original number, but on the other side of 0. So that means if I moved 2 to the left, I'm going to move 2 to the right, starting at 0, not 2 from -2, right? So I've got 1, 2. Here's +2. So move to the left 2 for my +2. So it's all an additive inverse is. So you're not going to be adding +2 to -2. You're going to be starting at 0, essentially just changing the sign. So on my example, I did 3 last time. So let's see. We'll do 3 as an example as well. So if I have 3 here, I moved 3 to the right. So that means it's starting at 0. I'm going to move 3 to the left to find my additive inverse. So 1, 2, 3. That puts me at -3. Move to the left. 3. So the additive inverse of -3 is just +3. -3 plus +3 is 0. The answer should always be, if you have your inverse with your original number, it should be equal to 0. Okay, so the additive inverse is the opposite of a number. All right, so I'm going to do the first 2. And then in the chat, go ahead and tell me what the additive inverse will be. If I have positive 4.5, my additive inverse going to be perfect, Ren. Yeah, -4.5. I'll give you another point for that. Okay, so that means I have negative here at my 3.2. I'm going to have a positive, right? 3.2. Okay, what is my additive inverse for -8.9? Perfect, yep, positive 8.9. What about 9.9? Negative 9.9. Perfect. Now it's going to be positive 9.9. Okay, so that means Ren's getting all of the points. 0, yep, 0 is just 0. Perfect. Yeah, because 0 is not going to be positive or negative. Okay, 65. You need to imagine that it's positive right here. Perfect. Negative 65. Let me put you down, Rebecca, for a point. Okay, now we have 15.4. And it's gonna, that will be positive, right? Because we don't have that negative sign in front of it. Perfect. Negative 15.4. Thank you, Ren. And then we have a positive, oh, thanks, Rebecca. I'll put point down for you too. Positive 18.6. Perfect. Negative 18.6. And it really is that easy. Again, it's just that vocabulary that we have that makes it seem difficult. All right, so show the additive inverse of negative 4. All right, so remember our rule says to find the distance, in essence. So the additive inverse of a number is the same distance from 0 on a number line as the original number. So if we go over here, I have negative 4, right? So I'm going to move to the left. That's where my negative digits will be. Negative 1, negative 2, negative 3, negative 4. So if I'm trying to find my additive inverse here of negative 4, that means I need to move over 4 spots, right? 1, 2, 3, 4. That will give me 4 for my additive inverse of negative 4. 1, 2, 3. All right, easy enough, yeah? All right, so what we'll do is on the next page, we have our guided practice. What I'm going to do, I'm going to put a 3-minute timer on, and we will, I'll have you guys do the guided practice on your own. So in 3 minutes, I'll check if you have the right answers. I'll throw in a couple extra credit points. And if you're not 100% sure, if you try, you're going to get your points regardless, as long as you're trying. But we'll review them. If everyone gets them all correct, then we'll move on to the next part. So we're doing really good with time right now. So let me start our 3-minute timer. Yeah, the guided practice is the exact same as what we just did. All right, so the timer just went off. Let's see where are we at. All right, so it looks like only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 people participated. Let's see. And you got them all right. Rebecca, it looks like you got them all right. All right. All right, so I'm going to share my doc cam. We'll go over 2 of them. I noticed that everyone got the first one right, which is great. Super great. But looks like on the second one, we went ahead and just added without doing the inverse. Okay, let me plug in my charger real fast. All right, so the additive inverse of 3.5. Everyone who participated got the correct answer, -3.5. Okay, great. We go positive here. The opposite is obviously going to be, so we can assume that this is positive since there's no negative in front of it. Negative, or the positive, opposite of positive is negative. And the number is 3.5, so A, -3.5. So number 2, Isaac and his class played a game of flag football in PE. Isaac's team made a big play and gained 7 yards. So if we gain 7 yards, we have positive, right? On the next play, they lost 7 yards. Okay, so that tells us we have a negative in here, right? What is the overall increase or decrease in yards? All right, so if I have +7 and I have -7, right? Here I have additive inverse here of 7 or additive inverse of -7. So I need to figure out the overall increase. That means I need to add them together, find the sum to find the increase or decrease in yards. So I'm going to take 7. I'm going to add -7. When I do that, +7 plus -7 is equal to 0, right? And we know if we add our additive inverse to the original number, it will always equal 0, right? So number 2 should be C. Perfect. Perfect. Okay, so then on number 3, and don't worry, you don't have to put your name on the guided practices sheet. This is for, before I had in-person class, like in-person and online. So I still have like the name section there. Number 3, Ashley borrowed $5.50 from her friend Rachel to buy a pair of earrings. So that means Ashley gained $5.50, right? Since she borrowed it. That means her friend gave it to her, meaning that she had an increase in money. So 2 weeks later, Ashley repaid Rachel that $5.50. That means that she had $5.50 again, right? And 2 weeks later, and she gave it away. That's going to give you -$5.50, right? Because when you repay someone, you're giving away money or giving back money. How much does Ashley still owe Rachel? All right, so the original value was $5.50, and she gave her back $5.50, right? $5.50 plus -$5.50, right? Or if I have my original number here, I have my additive inverse here, I know that when I combine my original number and additive inverse, I will always get 0 because that is in our rule, right? So the answer 3 is $0, right? Because if I have right here in our rule, it states the sum of a number and its additive inverse is always 0. So remember our rule, we can always think of our rules like as in science when we have laws. We can think of them as pretty much always true, right? So number 1, negative 3/2, right? Because additive inverse of positive 3.5. Number 2, we had to add or find the sum of 7 yards and negative 7 yards, right? Because they lost it. So we had to add the additive inverse or find the sum of an original number in the additive inverse. And the same with the last one. We had to find the sum of a value and its additive inverse. We did have to pull those two numbers from the question and understand that we had positive 550 and negative 550. It didn't necessarily say this is the additive inverse. And that's why it's so important to learn the additive inverse and its rule, because it's really easy to read this problem and see like, oh, 550, 550 doesn't say negative 550. I'm going to add them together, right? And if you don't read through the whole question, it's easy to put $11, right? Oh, you're not seeing the questions, Annalie? Are you not seeing them on my screen or on your screen? In the Nearpod, it is the guided practice, which is the page after the notes page. And then I have the guided practice on the screen. So I'm not sure, can you not see it on the screen? On yours, interesting. Let me see. Yeah, it says awaiting drawing on here. Maybe refresh or like log out of it, because it should be on slide number 7. And it is, the student pace is on, so you should be able to go back and forth through the Nearpod. All right. And then Rebecca, you're the only person that has submitted this. Oh, I'm sorry. Let me scroll down. I've got Ren, Rebecca, Angelica, and Raina. You guys have submitted. Awesome. So everyone else, like Cameron, Estrella, Javier, Nathan, Emily, Cash, Xavier, Bianca, and Tyson, you guys need to submit it. But I'm going to move on to the next part. And this, please answer this. It is the poll on page 8. And since it's on student pace, you guys need to go to slide 8 yourselves. Should we move on or review? I know the last, before we got started, I had 2 no's for it making total sense. So if it's still not making sense, we can spend our time together kind of doing a couple of review questions. Or we can move on to slide 6, or rule 6, not slide 6. Okay, so half the people haven't answered. Oh, you're in the wrong one. Oh, bummer. I'm sorry. All right. Okay, so I have a few reviews. So what I want to do, I'll do 2 review questions, and not with additive inverse, but back to the adding and subtracting positive and negative numbers. I'll do 3 actually. If I have positive 5 plus negative 3. Okay, you guys can answer in the chat for your extra credit, but I'm going to answer this one first. I'm going to show the work here. So I have positive 5 plus negative 3. So I'm going to find the absolute value. Remember the symbol here. I put 2 lines. You can think about it as like a large equal sign, like being like equal to its whole value. Okay, so my absolute value of 5 will stay 5. My absolute value of negative 3 is going to be 3. I can tell that 5 is larger than 3, so I know my answer will be positive. I am then going to subtract the smaller number from my larger number. So I'm going to have 5 minus 3, which will equal 2. I take my sign from the larger number, bring it over, and that's going to give me positive 2 as my final answer, right? Okay, do another one. And you can answer in the chat, but I'm going to work all the way through this one too, just so for anyone who's not understanding, they can just see the work being done. All right, let's say I have negative 6 plus, let's do positive 4. You want to find that value. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to start out by finding the absolute values. So my absolute value of negative 6 will be 6. Absolute value of 4 remains 4. Looking at my two absolute values, 6 is larger than 4. So I know that my answer will be negative. Remember, the rule was if you are adding rational numbers of opposite signs, right? Different signs, we're going to find the difference of the absolute values, then use the sign of the rational number with the greater absolute value. That's why I'm going to take the sign, the negative from the 6 for my answer. Okay, so now I'm going to use the larger number to subtract the smaller number. So I'm going to use 6 subtract 4. That will give me 2. Can't forget to take my sign from my larger absolute value, bring it over to my answer. So my final answer will be negative 2. Is that making more sense? And then from our homework last week, I'm going to do an example. I have, let's say, we have 3 quarters plus negative 1/12. All right, so my denominators are not equal to each other, right? 4 is not equal to 12. So I need to figure out how to get that value, my denominator, that is equivalent. So that way I can add both of my numbers. Let's see, so I don't think I can do least common multiple, right? Because I have 4 and 12. 4 will give me 2 and 2. And 12 will give me 2 and 6. But I can't divide 3/4 by 2. Or 1/12 by 2, right? Because this is only 1. So I'm going to have to go with least common multiple. Luckily, with my 4s, I know that I have 4, 8, 12. 4 times 3, right? 1, 2, 3 is equal to 12. So if I multiply the top by 3, bottom by 3, that will give me an equivalent fraction with the denominator of 12. So 3 times 3 is equal to 9. 4 times 3 is equal to 12. I need to add -1/4. Remember, if you're not 100% sure of your math skills, you're not sure if it is equivalent, you can take your calculator, your phone, or even look up a calculator on your computer. There are calculator apps, and we can do 3 divided by 4, right? That gives us 0.75 from our original fraction. Then we can take 9 divided by 12. That gave me 0.75 as well. So I know that my fractions are equivalent, right? So now I can just take my 9/12 and add -1/12. So here comes the somewhat difficult part. So since I have the same numbers on my denominator, I know usually all I have to do is add the top, right? But I do have 9 plus -1. So I'm going to take my addition problem, bring it over here. I've got 9 plus -1. I'm going to do the same thing that I did before with these other numbers that did not have a denominator larger than 1. Okay, I'm going to take the absolute value of 9, absolute value of -1. That means I have 9 and 1. Right? My larger number is going to be 9, so I know that my answer will be positive. I need to subtract 1 from 9, right? So I'm at 9 minus 1, that equals 8. Take my positive sign over, right? Positive 8. So now I just need to bring it back over, and I'll have 8/12 as my final answer. Okay, does that part make sense to you guys? I know that's kind of like a lot of steps, but you will use this as you progress through math. And it was very simple, right, to do this math right here with the -6 plus 4. And then it looks difficult, but all you have to do is find the common denominator. And we did that. We did that right before we started iReady, right? Between actually iReady and SBAC, we were looking for the greatest common factors. And remember when we sat down and talked about all the vocabulary, we talked about how much easier it was than we thought. And so when we add negative numbers, all you have to do is break it apart in that easy, the easy part was finding the greatest, or the denominator, right? Of either like the greatest common factor or the lowest common multiple. And then take the top part and just do a simple adding problem over here. And then bring it back over to your denominator. It doesn't have to be so difficult where you look at it as 9/12 plus -1/2. You can break it apart into the steps that you already know. Okay. I told you guys that my promise to you all is to make math really easy. Be able to look at it and find an easier problem to get to your solution, right? Okay, so we have 2 minutes, so I will let you guys go. We will continue on with the Nearpod in class. I don't want you guys to venture too much further with the rules without me going over them. So the homework, if last week you submitted it and it had a lot of errors, go ahead and fix it. I will send it back to you if you want anything below 100%, so you guys can fix it. That will be your homework before next class period. And we will be working on the Nearpod. If you need to take the SBAC test, I will have a test open for the rest of the day, so you can come back in and do that. We are getting that done by the end of this week. And if you aren't done, they are going to call you to come do it in person. All right. Are there any questions? No? Okay. All right. Bye, Rebecca. Oh, and thank you for participating today. And I did get your 3 points marked down. Bye, Rena. Bye, everyone. Thanks. You have a great rest of your day, too. It's beautiful outside. It hasn't gotten crazy hot yet. Bye, Ren. And before we go, I will put the state test number into the chat. And let me know too if you do need one for English. I can add English to the test that I posted. All right, here is a code. Perfect. Now go ahead and end the meeting, and I will see you guys on Thursday. On Thursday.